My phone buzzed at 1:12 a.m. Unknown number. One message, 6 words, "Don't go to your son's wedding. Run." I thought it was a joke. Then I called back, no ringing, no hello, just breathing. And then a voice quietly said my name. My name is Elliot Ward. I'm 62 years old. I live in Stonebridge Lake. What happened just days before my son's wedding changed everything I thought I knew. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? I didn't reply to the text. I stared at it until the screen dimmed, then lit it again just to make sure the words hadn't changed. Don't go to your son's wedding. Run. At 1:12 in the morning, your brain tries to protect you. It looks for jokes, pranks, wrong numbers, anything but the truth. I told myself it was a scam, a drunk friend, some idiot fishing for a reaction. Then I called back. The call connected instantly. No ring, no greeting, just breathing, slow, controlled, like someone counting their steps. "Hello," I said. The breathing paused. Then a voice low, close to the phone, said my name, not shouted. Not rushed, careful, familiar. I hung up. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, listening to the house settle. The old wood in the hallway popped. The refrigerator hummed. Everything ordinary, pretending nothing had happened. My wife, Nora, slept through it. She always did. She could sleep through storms, sirens, the dog barking at shadows. I envied that kind of peace. I didn't wake her. I went to the kitchen instead and poured a glass of water I didn't drink. My hands were steady, which scared me more than if they'd been shaking. When fear goes quiet, it's usually because it's thinking. The message sat there, patient. Run from what? I opened my contacts and scrolled to my son's name. I didn't call him. It was too late, too strange, too easy to ruin sleep with panic. And there was another reason I didn't want to admit. The text had landed on something tender. The wedding, 3 weeks away. Stonebridge Lake was already dressed for it. The lodge by the water had hung white lights along the dock. The florist had put a sign out front with my son's name in looping script. Even the bakery downtown had a chalkboard announcing a wedding weekend special. Everyone was excited. Everyone except me. It wasn't that I didn't love my son. I did. I still remember the way he learned to ride a bike, how he refused help, how he fell twice and got up both times with blood on his knee and a smile he couldn't hide. He was stubborn, proud, like me. But the wedding had come together too fast. They met 8 months ago, engaged by spring, plans made by summer. Every time I asked a question, he laughed it off. When you know, Dad, maybe, or maybe you know what you want to know. I rinsed the glass and set it upside down on the counter. The clock ticked toward 2. The house felt smaller, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. I tried calling the number again, straight to silence. No breathing this time, no voice. I texted back instead, "Who is this?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. I went back to bed and lay there, eyes open, counting the seconds between the ceiling fan's clicks. Sleep hovered just out of reach, like a cat that doesn't want to be caught. At 6:30, Nora woke and found me staring at the wall. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Got a weird text," I replied. She propped herself on one elbow. "From who? I don't know." She waited. Nora had always been good at waiting. I showed her the message. She read it twice. "That's creepy. You think it's about the wedding." "I think it wants me to think it's about the wedding." She studied my face. "Are you worried?" I wanted to say no. I said I don't know. That was the truth. After breakfast, I drove into town. Stonebridge Lake looked the way it always did on a clear morning. Water flat as glass, the mountains holding the horizon steady. Familiar places have a way of arguing with fear. They say nothing bad happens here. I parked by the marina and walked the dock. The lodge manager waved, cheerful, already rehearsing smiles for guests who hadn't arrived yet. I waved back, felt ridiculous for being uneasy in a place that had hosted weddings for decades without incident. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. This time it was a photo. A grainy image of the lodge's back entrance. The service door, taken recently. The new lights were visible in the frame. My stomach tightened. Another message followed. "They won't let you leave once you're there." I stopped walking. A man unloading kayaks glanced at me, concerned. I forced a nod and stepped aside, heart pounding. I typed, "What are you talking about?" The reply came slower this time. "Ask him about the paperwork." Paperwork. I called my son. He answered on the 3rd ring, cheerful, out of breath like he'd been running. "Dad. Everything okay? Are you busy?" "Always," he laughed. "What's up?" I leaned against the railing, stared at the water. I got a strange message. Spam, maybe. It mentioned the wedding. There was a pause, short, almost nothing. People are weird, he said. Probably someone jealous. Did you sign any paperwork recently? Another pause, longer. What kind of paperwork? The kind that needs witnesses, I said carefully. The kind you don't talk about, he sighed. Dad, you're overthinking. Am I? Look, he said, voice tightening just a little. Can we not do this now? There's a lot going on. I waited. He didn't fill the silence. All right, I said. We'll talk later. I hung up feeling worse than before. That evening, Nora found me at the table with my laptop open. Tabs everywhere. Venues, vendors, travel details, legal basics I hadn't thought about in years. You're spiraling, she said gently. I'm preparing for what? I looked at her. I don't know yet. At 9:40, the phone buzzed again. Unknown number, a voice message. I played it, static at first. Then a sound like fabric brushing a microphone, then the same controlled breathing, and then words. Once you cross the threshold, the voice said softly, it won't be your choice anymore. The message ended. I sat there long after the screen went dark. 3 weeks until the wedding, 2 warnings. And a feeling settling in my gut that whatever this was, it wasn't random. It was timed, and it was aimed directly at me. I didn't play the voice message for Nora right away. Not because I didn't trust her, but because once you let a fear out into the room, it grows legs. It starts pacing, asking questions you can't answer yet. Instead, I saved the audio, backed it up twice, and turned my phone face down like it might bite me. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. I told myself it was curiosity. It was instinct. Stonebridge Lake doesn't have much of a records office. 2 clerks, fluorescent lights, the smell of old paper. The kind of place where secrets don't hide well because nothing moves fast enough to cover them. I asked about marriage licenses, about prenuptial agreements, about trusts. The clerk, a woman with careful glasses and a tired smile, raised an eyebrow. That's a lot of questions for a father of the groom. I like to be informed, I said. She slid a form across the counter. Anything specific? I hesitated, then said my son's name. She typed, paused, typed again, her mouth pressed into a line. There's a filing, she said. Recent, my chest tightened. What kind of filing? I can't disclose details, she said carefully. But it's unusual for a wedding. Unusual how? She looked around the empty room, then lowered her voice. It involves property access and decision authority. Conditional, I thanked her and left before I said something I couldn't take back. Outside, the air felt thinner. Conditional authority. I called a friend who worked in legal compliance, an old colleague from my engineering days who drifted into law because he liked rules even more than I did. We met for coffee that afternoon. I didn't tell him everything. I told him enough. He listened, fingers steepled, eyes sharp. Have you seen the document? He asked. No, then we assume nothing, he said. But conditional authority tied to marriage can mean power of attorney clauses or guardianship triggers. Guardianship, I repeated. Extreme, he said. But not unheard of. Triggered by what? Capacity concerns, he said, or allegations of instability. My stomach dropped. That night, I finally played the message for Nora. She listened without interrupting, her face changing in slow degrees, from confusion to concern to something close to anger. That voice knows you, she said when it ended. Yes, and the picture. That door, yes, she folded her arms. Someone wants you scared. Or gone, she didn't argue. We called our son again together, put it on speaker. He sounded tired this time, frayed. Dad, Mom, what's this about? He asked. Did you sign anything that limits who can make decisions for you? Nora asked gently. Silence. Then it's not like that. That's not an answer, I said. He exhaled sharply. It's for protection. From who? From interference, he said. From people who don't understand our values. I felt a flare of heat in my chest. Are you talking about us? No, he said quickly, too quickly. I'm talking about outside influence. Who suggested this? Nora asked. Another pause. They did, he said. They, that word again. Listen to me, I said. Someone told me not to go to your wedding. Someone warned me to run. That's ridiculous, he snapped. Who would do that? You tell me. He didn't answer. 2 days later, another message arrived. No words this time, just coordinates. I typed them into a map. They pointed to the lodge, specifically the back service corridor. I drove there before I could talk myself out of it. The lodge was quiet midweek, staff moving slowly, prepping for the weekend. I walked around back, pretending I was checking something on my phone. The service door was ajar. Inside, voices echoed down the hallway. I recognized one of them immediately, my son. The other voice was unfamiliar, older, authoritative, measured. Once he signs in as a guest, the older voice said, we're covered. And if he refuses, my son asked. Then you delay, distract, keep him inside the event. Public settings discourage scenes. My blood went cold. Until when? My son asked. Until the paperwork activates, the voice replied. After that, it won't matter. I stepped back before they could see me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. You heard enough. Now decide. I drove home shaking. I told Nora everything. We sat at the table long after the sun went down, the weight of it settling between us. They're planning something, she said. At the wedding. They're using it, I said, as leverage. As cover for what? She asked. I didn't answer right away, because the answer terrified me. Control, authority. And once it was activated, whatever it was, it wouldn't be private. It would be legal. I went to bed knowing one thing for certain. I couldn't go to that wedding blind, and I couldn't warn my son directly anymore. Someone else was already in his ear. And they were closer than I'd ever imagined. I didn't tell my son I'd overheard him. Once you cross that line, there's no pretending anymore. And I needed him to believe everything was still normal, at least on the surface. Instead, I started documenting every text, every missed call, every strange coincidence. I wrote times down in a notebook I hadn't used since my engineering days, when evidence mattered more than opinions. Fear can make you sloppy. Writing things down keeps you sharp. The unknown number messaged again the next morning. They moved the deadline. I typed back for the first time. What deadline? The reply came instantly. The trigger date. It's tied to the ceremony. My pulse thudded in my ears. What triggers? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then a single word, authority. I showed the messages to Nora. She didn't panic. She did something far more useful. She asked a question, who benefits if you're neutralized? She said, neutralized, not harmed, not killed, removed. I thought of the paperwork, the conditional authority. The phrase I'd heard in the hallway, once he signs in as a guest. Guests sign in. Guests are present. Guests consent by attending. A knot formed in my stomach. That afternoon, I drove to see someone I hadn't spoken to in years, a retired notary who'd handled contracts for half the county before stepping away. A man who believed paper was more dangerous than knives. I didn't tell him everything. I showed him the messages, described the fragments I'd heard. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. People hide power in ceremonies, he said. Weddings, funerals, inaugurations, moments when no one questions why signatures are happening. What kind of power? I asked. Temporary guardianship. Emergency proxy, asset oversight, he replied, sometimes bundled into celebratory acknowledgments. I felt sick. You're saying they could trap me legally just by getting me to attend, if the documents are drafted right, he said. Yes. That night my son called. His voice was softer, careful. Dad, are you coming early for the rehearsal dinner? I closed my eyes. Why? I asked. So we can talk, he said. Just us. That alone told me it wouldn't be just us. I'll let you know, I said. After the call, the unknown number sent another message. He doesn't know the whole plan, but he'll follow it. I paced the living room until midnight. Then the phone rang, not the unknown number. A local number, I answered. Mr. Ward? A man asked. Yes, my name is Caleb Ross. I'm an independent mediator. I've been asked to reach out regarding a family concern. I almost laughed. By who? I asked. By parties invested in your well-being, he said smoothly. They're worried you've been under stress. Interesting, I said. Because I feel fine. Stress doesn't always feel like stress, he replied. Sometimes it feels like resistance. There it was. I'm not interested, I said. Before you decide, he continued, you should know this outreach was logged. Logged how? As a courtesy attempt, he said. It helps establish a record of care, a record. I hung up without saying goodbye. The next morning, a courier delivered an envelope. Inside were printed copies of my own emails, old ones, harmless ones, taken out of context. A cover letter sat on top. We want to help you make good decisions. Emily had once told me that control always pretends to be concern. Now I understood exactly what she meant. I drove to the lodge again, this time openly. I asked for the event coordinator. She smiled professionally. We're excited to host your family. I need to see the guest acknowledgement packet, I said. Her smile tightened. That's typically handled on the day. I want to review it now. She hesitated. Then nodded. One moment. When she returned, the packet was thinner than I expected, but the language inside was dense. I scanned it once, then again, there it was, a clause buried 3 pages in. In the event of a disruption or health concern, designated parties may temporarily assume decision-making authority to ensure continuity and safety. Designated parties, not named. not specified. But activated by presence, by attendance, by participation, my hands trembled. That night, the unknown number sent one final message. If you go, you won't leave with your rights intact. If you don't go, he'll blame you. Either way, they win unless you change the rules. I sat with that for a long time. Then I replied, how do I change them? The response came slower this time. Expose the trigger before the ceremony. I slept for 2 hours, maybe less. At dawn, I made a decision. I wouldn't run, and I wouldn't attend like they expected. If they wanted the ceremony to be a trap, I'd turn it into a spotlight. And whatever they were hiding in paperwork and politeness, I'd drag it into the open. I spent the next 48 hours doing the opposite of panicking. I planned. Fear wants you frantic. Control wants you confused. I gave them neither. First, I called my lawyer. Not a family friend, not a favor. Someone sharp, expensive, and unfamiliar to anyone connected to the wedding. I sent her screenshots, transcripts, and the clause I'd found in the packet. She read quietly. This is predatory, she said. It's written to activate in public where resistance looks unreasonable. Can it be stopped? I asked. Yes, she said. But not by staying home. I nodded. I already knew that. Next, I called the lodge and requested a pre-event walkthrough for accessibility concerns. I brought my lawyer as my consultant. They didn't refuse. Refusing would look bad. Optics matter to people who trade in them. We walked the spaces slowly, the dock, the hall, the service corridor. I asked simple questions, where guests sign in, where documents are stored. Who handles emergencies? Each answer added a brick to the picture. Then the unknown number texted again. They're accelerating. Rehearsal dinner signatures. I forwarded it to my lawyer. She looked up. They're trying to trigger early. That night, Nora sat with me at the kitchen table while I wrote a statement, not a speech. A record, dates, quotes, clauses, names of roles without naming people. Calm, factual, hard to dismiss. Are you sure? She asked. No, I said, but I'm ready. The morning of the rehearsal dinner arrived bright and cruelly beautiful. White clouds, still water. The kind of day that dares you to believe nothing bad could happen. I dressed simply. No suit, no tie, comfortable shoes. I tucked my phone into an inside pocket and clipped a small recorder to my belt. Legal here, disclosed if asked. At the lodge, staff bustled. Laughter bounced off wood beams. The smell of flowers was almost too sweet. My son spotted me and hurried over, relief flooding his face. Dad, he said, you came. I did, I said. We need to talk. Later, he asked quickly. Everything's moving. Now, I said gently. We stepped aside near the windows. He looked thinner up close, tired, a man who'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Are you okay? I asked. He nodded too fast, of course. I heard you in the corridor, I said. His eyes widened. He glanced around. You weren't supposed to. Who are they? I asked. He swallowed. They help families manage risk. By taking control, I said. They said it was temporary, he whispered. A safety net. For whom? I asked. He didn't answer. Before I could press, a woman approached with a clipboard. Polite, efficient. Mr. Ward, we just need your signature acknowledging the rehearsal schedule, she said. I took the clipboard, 3 pages. Dense, before I sign, I said. I'd like this clause clarified. I pointed. Her smile froze. That's standard. I'd like it clarified in writing, I said. Murmurs rippled nearby. A few heads turned. She hesitated. I'll check. She didn't return alone. An older man joined her, calm, authority in his posture. We can explain, he said. Privately. No, I said. Here is fine. My son's face had gone pale. The man leaned closer. This isn't the time. It is, I said. Because this clause allows unnamed parties to assume decision-making authority over guests present at an event, correct? It's for emergencies, he said. Define emergency, my lawyer asked, stepping in beside me. The man blinked. He hadn't expected her. Voices lowered. A tight circle formed. Phones lifted discreetly. We can revise the language, he said. Not today, my lawyer replied. Remove it. That would delay the event, he said. Then delay it, I said. A hush fell. My son looked between us. Dad, please, I softened my voice. I'm protecting you. From what? He asked, anguish cracking through. From being used, I said. From letting strangers weaponize your wedding. The unknown number buzzed. They're losing control. Push now. I took a breath and did the thing fear hates most. I told the truth out loud. I received warnings, I said clearly. Texts, calls, evidence that this event is being used to activate authority clauses without transparent consent. Gasps, whispers. The older man raised his hands. This is inappropriate. Then answer the question, my lawyer said. Who are the designated parties? Silence. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else swore under their breath. My son stared at the clause, then at the man. Who? He demanded. The man didn't answer. That was it. My son pulled the clipboard from my hands and tore the page cleanly out. Remove this, he said, voice shaking. From everything. The woman protested. The man argued. Staff froze. A manager hurried over. What's going on? A clause designed to take control, I said. We're not signing. The manager paled. Let me call. No, my lawyer said. We're done here. The rehearsal dinner didn't happen. People drifted. Conversations broke into shards. The dock lights flickered on early. My son and I stood alone by the water. I didn't know, he said hoarsely. They said it was normal. They always do, I said. He covered his face. I trusted them. So did I said. Once, the unknown number sent one last text that night. You exposed the trigger. Good. Now comes the reckoning. I watched the lights ripple on the lake and understood something with terrifying clarity. We hadn't stopped the wedding. We changed the rules. And the people who rely on hidden clauses and quiet consent, they don't forgive that. The morning after the rehearsal collapsed, Stonebridge Lake felt like it had a secret it couldn't keep. Word traveled fast in a town that survived on weddings and weekends. By breakfast, the lodge staff knew. By lunch, the florist knew. By dinner, everyone knew something had gone wrong, just not what. My phone stayed quiet. That silence was deliberate. People who operate in the margins don't shout when they lose ground. They regroup. My son didn't leave the house that day. He sat at the kitchen table with Nora and me, turning his phone face down whenever it buzzed. They keep apologizing, he said finally. Saying there was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding doesn't hide authority clauses, Nora said. He nodded, jaw tight. They're asking to meet, private, just us. No, I said immediately. I know, he replied. I already said no. That answer told me something important. He decrossed a line in his own mind. That afternoon, my lawyer called. They're trying to salvage, she said. Offering revised documents, new coordinators, fresh start. And the clause, I asked. She says they'll remove ambiguity. That means rename it. I looked out the window at the lake. What do? We document the attempt, she said, and we warn the venue formally. Within hours, the lodge sent an email to all parties. All guest acknowledgements suspended pending legal review. That was a crack in the dam. The unknown number returned that night. They're panicking. They'll try to isolate him next. I showed it to my son. He didn't flinch this time. They already did, he said quietly. Months ago. He told us everything then. How he'd been introduced to the consultants. How they framed it as protection for him, for his future family. How they suggested distance from interference. How every concern he raised was met with reassurance, then urgency. They said weddings are volatile, he said, emotional. Risky, and that you needed structure, I said. Yes, he stared at his hands. I thought I was being responsible. You were being managed, Nora said gently. The next day the lodge canceled the wedding, not postponed, canceled. The email was brief, legal language, apologies. The reaction was immediate, calls, texts, confusion. The woman he was supposed to marry showed up at our door that evening, eyes red, hands shaking. I didn't know, she said as soon as she stepped inside. I swear, I believed her. She explained how the consultants had handled everything, how she'd been told it was standard, how dissent was framed as stress. I thought it was normal, she said. Everyone kept saying that. Normal is the most dangerous word in the wrong mouth. My son listened without interrupting. Then he asked one question. Who benefits? She hesitated. Then she said a name, not a person, an organization, a firm that specialized in event risk management and continuity services. My lawyer knew it. Gray area operators, she said over the phone. They push boundaries, live in clauses. We filed a formal complaint, then another. So did the lodge. So did 2 other families, it turned out, who'd had strange experiences with the same firm. Patterns surfaced. Emergency proxies activated at events. Decisions made temporarily. Rights restored quietly after damage was done. It never looked like theft, it looked like help. The investigation took weeks. During that time, my son ended his engagement. Not in anger, in clarity. She didn't cause this, he told me, but she trusted them. And I trusted her trust. That honesty hurt. It also healed. One evening, the unknown number called. I answered. No breathing this time, just a voice. You did what we couldn't, it said. We tried to warn people. They silenced us. Who are you? I asked. A former client, the voice replied. One who didn't get out in time. The line went dead. Months passed. The firm dissolved quietly. Websites disappeared, emails bounced, partners moved on. No arrests, no headlines, but the clauses stopped appearing. Venues changed language, lawyers flagged risks. Consultants were questioned. The system didn't collapse, but it blinked. On a cool evening in early fall, my son and I sat by the lake again. No lights, no decorations, just water and wind. "I was angry at you," he admitted. "At first, I know," I said, "but you didn't run," he continued. "You showed up and you asked questions." I smiled. "That's the job," he looked at me. I almost lost myself. "You didn't," I said. "You listened when it mattered." He nodded. "Next time there will be a next time. I'll build it slower." I clapped his shoulder. "That's how you keep your name." As the sun set, my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number, a final message. "They can't use ceremonies anymore." I deleted it. Some warnings are meant to vanish once their work is done. The quiet after everything ended felt unfamiliar, not empty, unclaimed. For weeks, my body stayed braced for another warning. Another message, another shoe dropping. When nothing came, I realized how long I'd been living inside anticipation, waiting for the next move from people who thrived on it. My son moved out of the guest room and into a small rental near the edge of town. He said he wanted space to think. I knew what he really meant. He wanted to breathe. We helped him move on a Saturday morning. No ceremony, no speeches, just boxes, coffee, and the low hum of a truck engine cooling in the driveway. He worked steadily, methodically, the way he did as a kid when he was rebuilding something he'd broken by accident. At one point he stopped, holding a framed photo from his childhood, the two of us at the lake, fishing lines tangled, laughing anyway. "I don't want to rush anything again," he said. "You don't have to," I replied. "Life doesn't charge late fees for taking your time." He smiled at that, a real one. The lodge reopened later that season under new management. The service corridor door was replaced. The acknowledgement packet was rewritten, stripped to the bones. Plain language, named roles, clear limits. I read it once when I passed through town and felt something settle in my chest. Names matter, clarity matters. Nora and I returned to our routines slowly. Morning walks, shared dinners. The kind of ordinary that feels earned after you've lived without it. One evening, as we washed dishes, she said, "Do you ever think about the message?" "All the time," I said. "The first one," she clarified. "The one that told you to run." I dried my hands. "I think about what would have happened if I had." She nodded. "You'd still have your rights. But you might have lost your son." That truth landed gently but firmly. Running would have saved me in the short term. Staying changed everything. Months later, I received a letter. No return address. No letterhead. Inside was a single page typed. "You exposed a mechanism that only worked because people were polite. Thank you for being impolite when it mattered." No signature. I folded it once and placed it in the drawer where I keep things I don't need to explain. My son started therapy, not because anyone told him to. Because he wanted to understand how easily certainty can be borrowed and how hard it is to get it back. One afternoon, he said something that surprised me. "I don't blame them anymore," he said. "I blame the part of me that wanted someone else to decide." "That part exists in all of us," I said. "It just doesn't always get the microphone." He laughed softly. "I'm taking it away." Winter came early that year. The lake iced over, thin at first, then firm enough to hold. On a gray morning, we stood together on the shore, watching the surface lock into place. "Funny," he said, "how something so calm can hide so much pressure underneath." I looked at him. "That's how most traps work." He nodded. "We didn't talk about the wedding anymore. Not because it hurt, but because it no longer defined anything. The unknown number never contacted me again. I don't know who they were. I don't know how many times they tried to warn others. I only know that sometimes help comes from a place you can't see and leaves without asking for credit. Life didn't reward us with a neat bow. There were no apologies from the firm, no public reckoning, no dramatic justice, but there was something quieter, awareness. Venues changed, lawyers warned. Families asked better questions, and my son, my stubborn, proud son, learned that love doesn't require surrendering your name. One evening, long after the dust settled, my phone buzzed at 1:12 a.m. For a split second, my heart jumped. It was him. "Dad," he said, voice steady, "just calling to say I'm okay." I exhaled. "You don't have to call at this hour." "I know," he said. "I just wanted to." After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a while, listening to the house breathe. I thought about that first message, the one that told me to run. It wasn't wrong. It just didn't know me. Some warnings are meant to save your body. Others are meant to test your spine. I didn't run. I stood where I was, asked questions, and let the truth break the spell. And in doing so, I learned something I'll carry for the rest of my life. When someone tells you to run, it's worth asking why. But when someone tries to take your choices quietly, that's when you stand your ground, even if your voice shakes, even if the room turns cold. Because the cost of silence is always higher than the cost of being seen.